there, and welcome to part 2 of my interview with Glenda-Marie, or rather, Glenda-Marie interviewing me. Hopefully you enjoyed part 1, but I also hope that you'll equally enjoy part 2 as well, where we'll get a little bit more personal and give you a bit more insight into me as a person. So I shall leave you to it. Enjoy, and I'll see you again in another episode.
David, how would you navigate your preference around churches, private Dems, and one-to-one readings in your order of preference to what you actually like doing, to what you prefer, to the way that you work? How would you answer that?
It's changed. When I first started doing the work, it was all one-to-ones, because I couldn't necessarily imagine myself on a platform. So when I started developing for mediumship, I didn't develop for platform mediumship. I developed just to develop. And so yeah, it started with one-to-ones, but when I started doing platform, I've slowly found that that's where my preference goes. I like the buzz of the platform. The energy is very different with a platform mediumship, whether it be in a church or in a private demo or what have you. So I think my preference, or I guess me and Bill talked about it actually, and we kind of came to understanding that maybe platform demonstrations is more our niche type of mediumship. And so I think my preference is with Dems, where again, whether it's in a church or a private Dem, I guess that's where I would say my preference is. And look, with private readings, I've stopped advertising them, to be honest. So if people want one, they can contact me to have one, but I've not promoted them or advertised them. And I think purely because I'm also trying to get the balance between doing the mediumship but also doing my artwork, which I'm doing a lot more of as well. And so if I was to preference the mediumship, it would be the platform stuff. But look, I would earn a lot more money from doing private readings than doing church work. But I feel that's where the pull is to work more on the platform and the demonstrations.
So what do you actually offer right now if someone was to look you up?
So right now I'm going through another transition in my head with what's going on in my life. And I think that's the thing with mediumship, it's very experimental. You're experimenting with different things, and with things that you what new things you want to try. You might want to take some things out or add something in or change things up. So I'm going through that process at the moment. So at the moment I'm still doing church work. I've got bookings all the way up until December. Not fully booked by any stretch of the imagination, but I have got stuff in for the whole of the rest of this year. I've got some private dems coming up as well, some with Bill as well. So we're doing some of those this year. So I've got a mixture of different types of dems: church services, evenings of mediumship, and then the private stuff as well. If people want a one-to-one, then they can message me, and I will do it as long as I've got the space to do it. I will do it, but I'm not physically going out there going, here, book me. I've never done that anyway. Book me or book whatever. So, and I've removed the booking system from the website as well. It's just so I can control it better, because I'm just a one-man band. I don't have a PA or a booker or anything like that. I'm doing everything myself. So yeah, people do want to read, and they can inbox me. Just message me. And then for the moment, that's kind of it until I figure out where I'm going with it and what else I want to do. What else I want to do with it.
Yeah. And in amongst all of that, do we have a Coming Down to Earth with Spirit Volume 2?
Oh, the book?
Yes.
Yeah. Yes, and I don't know why I'm saying no. Yes and no. So I have started working on a second book. So I've got a lot of stuff onto paper so far. It's by no means anywhere near ready, but there is another book in the works. But with everything else I've got going on, I've had not put it on the back burner completely, but I've not touched it for a couple of months. So I think the thing is with writing a book, anyone that's written a book will know that it takes focus, it takes you to be in a certain mindset to get the book done. But when you've got that to do, then you've got your job to do and earning a living and everything else going on, you have to kind of have to prioritize. And maybe that's where I am at the minute, is prioritizing what's important for me for the moment. I know people want the second book because I've been asked multiple times about a second book. It will come. It's just, I guess, the timing of it and making sure that it's as I want it to be. Because as I've said before, I never just want to rehash something into something else. It's about bringing maybe a different perspective on things. And look, that book was written in, or I finished writing that book in 2009. So this is 5 years on now. So things have changed. My perspective on certain topics have changed. So I did think about um, releasing a second edition of the first book with extra chapters, but I thought, no, if I'm going to come out with a new book, it needs to be completely new. I don't want just to add things on to an existing book because it's still there, right? Those were my thoughts at the time, and some of them do still stand. But yeah, this new book will um, again maybe have different perspectives, and it will answer questions which people have asked me over the years as well. A bit like this interview, I guess.
Yeah.
It will come, but it's just it's just a process.
Yeah, and it all takes time, and uh, as I believe, we just have to trust the journey. We have to trust the
Yeah,
timing, and it'll all fall into place. And I'm sure that is happening for you right now as you're navigating
yeah.
this change. I have a question from Francesca Austin, one of your lovely ladies. What was one of your funniest connections to spirit?
What's my funniest connections to spirits? Oh, I don't know. Um, well, first of all, I'll say is when people know that when I work, I always work with humour anyway, right? So there's always upliftment in my dems. There's always laughter when there needs to be. Um, do you know what? I don't know. I think as mediums, we don't remember unless they have certain ones that stand out. And I do have some of those readings, but we don't remember our readings. I can't think of one in particular. I know I had one where a lady in spirit pinched my bum, and the lady who I was going to with the message laughed out loud because she said that's exactly what she would do. So that's one little thing that I can remember. But there are a lot of them which are quite funny because when spirit work with me, they bring through their character and their personality, and that for me is one of the most evidential parts of the things that I do is that I do try and bring through that character, that essence, the personalities. That person I'm going to knows that it is their loved one. Um, so there've been a few funny moments, but I can't pinpoint one where I go, oh, haha, that made me crease up laughing. Yeah, but actually, you know what? They make me do really silly things on stage, on platform. That's probably what I will say is that I could be stood there very still and I'm connecting with a person of spirit, and actually there'll be a lady who I've brought through before. She had a skirt on. She had a long skirt on, which went past the knee. So she's quite old school. I think she must have been in her 70s. And as I stood there, I felt like I needed to kick my legs and start dancing across the platform, which I nearly did. And in my head, I could see this lady lift her skirt up above her knees and hold it out like this, and then kick her legs as she was dancing. And she would. And I was told after I said that, that that's what she would do. There was a story of her being in the kitchen, I think it was, and something might have come on the radio. And she'd lift her skirt up because she was a next dancer. She'd lift her skirt up, she'd kick her legs about, and just to make, whether the grandkids laugh or whatever else. So they'll do things like that to me, or I'll start playing with my teeth. I'll start doing all this. And I could feel their teeth coming out of their mouth, and they would. As I've been told, the validations there. So it's those kind of things that make people laugh because I can do some silly things on platform, and then the spirit make me do the most random, odd, funny things, and no, it brings through the evidence because people know when I do those kind of things, that is exactly what their loved ones would do. So it forms, although it's funny, it forms part of the evidence. So yeah.
Yeah. So, what is the most important lesson you've learned through your work as a psychic medium?
What the important things I have learnt? Um, Compassion, absolutely. And I think I have become definitely through my development, has become a more compassionate person. Um, and that grief is different for everybody. That there
Mm.
is no one way of doing it. There's no timeline you can put on things. You know, some people come to a reading and they'll be in floods of tears. Some people will come with that trying that stiff upper lip, try not to cry. Some people will come quite straight faced and show no emotion. But it's just I've learned that's just how they process it, and there's no judgment behind that. So it's also learning how to communicate with people and how important our job is because the way we communicate with them is what they will take away from that reading. They can take away the evidence, but it's also important that we show that compassion and that we can tailor our communication to each person that we have because they're all different. Um, and I guess it's just being kind as well because you never know what someone's going through.
Absolutely. Um, I do want to kind of lighten it up a little bit.
Okay.
I've had a question from, I think is it Karen Jones.
Okay.
What were you like as a teenager?
I thought we were lightening things up. What was okay? What was I like as a teenager? I was a very shy, introverted, unconfident, um, wouldn't say boo to a goose kind of teenager. So I was, yeah, very different to as I am now. I mean, there's still traits there, I suppose, but very different to what I am now. Yeah, I was just very, yeah, get just very shy. I would, very unconfident mentally, emotionally, physically. So I know it's supposed to get light, but it's just being very honest, right? It wasn't a, a box of chocolates, wasn't full of roses. See, I was very different. I was very, yeah, very in myself, in my own head, very sensitive. I was told quite often that I was oversensitive, that I would take things to heart too easily. And so, yeah, that's what I was like, really, as a teenager. Wouldn't get to arguments unless I had to. A bit like now, I suppose. But yeah, I do you know, I thought about this the other day, and I think that I was just very fearful and just fearful of life in general. I think through experiences that I had, and I think that's kind of how I lived my life as a teenager. Really, um, not drawing attention to myself whatsoever. I would be sat in the background, or I'd rather be sat in the background, have people not look at me than be looked at. So the fact that I'm now on stage is complete opposite to to that, completely different spaces. So yeah, that's basically me as a
Yeah,
teenager.
well, that's taken a lot of confidence and a lot of work
Mm,
from where you were to get to where you are now, to put
yeah,
yourself up on a stage, to be so vulnerable, to hope that whatever you're bringing through resonates with someone and you're not making it up.
mhm.
Like it's massive to get to where you are now. Do you think that through your years of like dancing and your sport, like your gymnastics and all that, do you think that that had a massive impact or help to get you through those hard times?
Um, I loved gymnastics. If I go back to that, I loved it, and I knew I was good at it. Didn't think I was good at much else, to be honest. But I knew gymnastics was something which I could excel at, and I did. And I wished I'd kept it on for longer, but effectively I stopped doing it because I started to be bullied at the gymnastics club. So
Yeah,
I gave it up.
I felt that something was around the
So,
bullying there.
but I put a different excuse on it at the time. Um, so that stopped that. Yeah, I think the dancing, you just get to an age, I think, where I mean, I still do. And I had a drag career for 12 years as well, which is all dance based. And then you get to a certain point in life, and things just change. Your interests change, and you do different things. Um, but even when I did gymnastics and doing the dancing things, I was still very unconfident with it. Although I was achieving the gold medals, almost before every single competition, I'd be outside. I'd be physically throwing up
Mm.
because I knew what I was doing on the floor, but I didn't like all those people looking at me whilst I was doing it. And same with dancing is a bit different because I was a bit older at that point, so I was still nervous, but it wasn't as bad as gymnastics. Um, so could I say they lend itself to what I'm doing now? I don't know. I don't know. I think everything helps, as we said earlier on. Everything builds up to something. But looking back at the situations, it's very different. 'Cause again, I was a very different person. I was very unconfident. Again, didn't want people looking at me, and what have you. So even with the drag thing, someone asked me that before. That do I think my career on stage doing drag has helped with the platform work? Again, I don't know because with drag, you have a mask on. I was a character. I was still
Yeah.
myself, but when I was on stage, people weren't looking at David; they were looking at Claire because I was fully made up. You couldn't even tell David was there, and so you almost have that thing to hide behind where people are not looking at me. People are not looking at me. They're looking at Claire. But even when I first started doing drag, I was very self conscious on that platform. I didn't like my legs. I didn't like my shape. I didn't like my physique. Um, and all this kind of thing. So I felt that people were actually laughing at me on the stage rather than enjoying it. So I had that in my head as well. Um, and even now, when I do a demonstration, you never know who's going to be sat in the audience, right? So I sometimes sit there thinking, is that man judging me? Because I know that a lot of men are not into this sort of thing, and that's a complete stereotypical thought process. But sometimes those things still creep in my head. What's that lady sat at the back with a face like a smacked ass? What is she thinking about me? Because she doesn't seem to be enjoying it. And my mind goes there sometimes. So it's still part of that. My past does creep in now and again to the present.
Now I'm going to get a little bit more personal, and you can
Okay.
edit this out if you don't feel comfortable answering. David, did you struggle going through being accepted for who you were, through your sexuality? Were you supported? Like, what age did you know that you just like boys?
I think I kind of always knew, I think, but in my head, I couldn't be that. And that's because coming back to my growing up, my mum's all my mum's side of the family are Irish Catholic. And not that my mum was a devout Catholic, but she did what she needed to do because it was the thing to do because her parents were Catholic. So my grandparents, just to give you an idea, both my nan and granddad come from Dublin, and they were part of a church group. They went to Lourdes on they had church coach trips. They had pictures of Jesus up in their house. Um, they had a little pot of holy water with the statue of the Virgin Mary on the inside of the front door. We don't have to bless ourselves going in, but it just gives you an idea. And I've got my nan's rosary beads as well, actually, of how religious they were, and they were very strict with my mum, my aunt, and my aunts and my uncle growing up. And so, luckily, that strictness didn't necessarily filter down into my siblings and I. But in my head, we still had the expectation of you grow up, you get married, and you have children. So that was always in my head. So when I felt like I was fancying boys or whatever, I was telling myself I can't be gay. I don't want to be gay, and I told myself I don't want to be gay because that's not what I'm meant to be. Um, and my dad's side, my dad's a very man's man, very no. that kind of way. A footballer, drank beers, liked girls. I was very, very opposite of that, and still am. Um, and so in my head, I was like, yeah, I can't. And then it wasn't till I got to when I was 18. Um, and in my head, I thought, you know, I can't do it anymore. I can't. I'm tired of lying. I'm tired of putting on a pretense to be this straight person that I'm not. And that's when I first came out. I said to my mum, I like boys and girls. That's normally the cop out for a lot of people, right? Not everyone, but um, but even to me, that was a lie because I didn't like. I would look at girls and think, oh, you look very attractive, and I'd still find girls attractive and pretty and whatever else. But there was nothing more than that to it. I would look at boys and I'd be going like, "Oh, look at that," but that was not the case with the girls, right? But yeah, I got to 18. I was working as that index, that shop I mentioned earlier on. I thought I can't do it anymore. I'm tired. And so I told my best friend Lisa, who bought me the tarot cards. I told her first, and she's gorgeous, so I knew I had no issue with her at all. And that was it, really. There was no real big sit down conversation with mum saying, right, mum, I've got something to tell you. I think she had an inkling anyway, right? Because I was quite effeminate, just how I was as a person, very sensitive. So I don't think there was a surprise there. Um, but I still felt that it wasn't the right thing. I was told ideally to keep it quiet, don't tell people. And I think that's because my mum was afraid that I would be attacked, or because the world as it was at the time. This is going back to 2000, I think it was, um, where people were being beaten up and being vilified and whatever else because of who they were. So when I first came out, my dad didn't know at first. My grandparents didn't know until long after the fact. And so we did keep it quiet, didn't go around shouting about it. That was always in my head. Don't go around shouting about it. Now you'd go to gay clubs to be safe and to be with your tribe, if you want to call it your tribe, whatever word you want to put on it there. Um, so I always felt supported by my mum, definitely. Um, Again, my grandparents didn't know. My When I had a conversation with my dad, the first thing he said was, I have to say, when I first found out, I was slightly disappointed. And my response was, well, that's fine, but I don't need your approval or anybody else's. And in that moment, I don't know why, but in that moment, I found that strength to go, well, this is me. Take it or leave it. And I do remember that. That was we went to a restaurant, actually. It's me, my stepmom, my siblings, and my dad. The first time, I think it was the first time we met after my mum had told him, because she thought it was important. It's your son, and that's it. So yeah, but since then it's fine. I've always had support there. I've never been shunned or turned away or been told I was disgusting or whatever. Thankfully, I've always had that support. But that's just the initial shock for him, I suppose, because I'm the eldest. I'm the one to carry on the family name, which ain't happening. I wasn't the big butch son wanting to play football, supporting this Arsenal team and whatever else. I was very opposite of that. So I guess I wasn't in his eyes. I'm not speaking for him, by the way. This is my thought. In my head, in his eyes, I wasn't the son that he necessarily would have. I don't know what I had those expectations of, shall we say? But it's got my brother. So my brother does all that. It's fine. But it's fine. We have a relationship,
Yeah.
whatever else. Everything else is fine. But initially, I guess it was just a scary time, I think,
Yeah.
and still figuring myself out. And then depression followed not long after that. And so it was just a bit of um, a bit of a scary, a bit of a mad time. And I guess for anyone coming out and finding themselves, it's not going to be an easy ride all the time. As much as the support is there, it's still not an easy thing, I think. And I don't think not to vilify straight people because I'm not, but I don't think they necessarily get it and understand unless you're actually going through it.
Yeah, so you not only came out of the closet being gay, you also come out of the closet saying I'm a medium. So you had two big, massive impacts that you came out with.
Mm, yeah.
And I guess you also understanding and wrapping your head around all of it would have been scary. It would have been, I guess, and you can talk about, you mentioned the depression and being accepted in both with both things that you are. How people are going to look at me, all of that sort of thing. And, I'm sorry that you had to go through a tough time. And I know that there is a lot of people that have gone through tough times of
Yeah,
coming
exactly.
out.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, and I take my hat off to you. Like you're such a fantastic person, and anyone that knows you absolutely loves you. So I
Thanks.
just keep saying, keep being you, David, because we love you and we can't get enough of you. So
Thank
don't
you.
ever
Well,
change.
it's too late now. Yeah, I am who I am. That's it.
Absolutely. Um, are you sick of the questions, or
No,
we
if
have
you want to
time
keep
for
going, you
more?
can keep going. That's all right.
Okay. Um, if you were to give some advice to a medium starting off, again, go back to young David,
Yeah.
what advice would you have given yourself starting off on this journey? It's some people, look, I don't know anyone that started off on an easy journey through their mediumship. And if you could turn back time and give yourself advice and also give advice to a budding medium that's starting off, what would that be?
And the first thing I'll say, based on observations as well, is think about why you want to do it. Is the biggest thing. I think it's people get into mediumship for all sorts of reasons, right? Sometimes it's through loss because they've lost someone. Some people it's just because they wake up and they think, oh, something strange is going on here. And unfortunately, there are other people who go in for it because they think they're going to earn loads of money and fame and fortune and the notoriety and all that and all that business, which is not necessarily, in my opinion, the right reason to do it. So it is really thinking about why you want to do it and how do you think it's going to how would it impact your life in a positive way? I think is think about that as well. That's the first thing I'll say. It's just that question: why do you want to do it? What do you want to get out of it? Hopefully, it's not the material things to get out of it, but more the other stuff with the emotional, maybe mental stuff to get out of it as well.
What would you have told yourself back in the day?
So I don't know because I was an older person when I first started to. I didn't go into this until I was 34. So it's not like I was in my teens where I had a lot going on in my head at that time. It was more 34, something in my head just said, now it's time to do it. After all the years of um, looking at mediums, going to see them in theatres and private readings or whatever else, and being interested in it, something in my head at 34 said, right, now is your time. So it wasn't necessarily a conscious thing. I know when I first started developing, I did question, why do I want to do it? That's why I'm saying it, because I would watch mediums online on Facebook when that was a big thing, and I would see the trolls trolling these mediums and nasty, vicious comments. And in my head, I was thinking, why am I doing this? Do I really want to do this? Because do I want to invite that kind of hate? And it was hate, it was hateful. Do I want to invite that hate into my life? And there's a point where I thought I'm not doing this because I don't need that in my life. I don't need to deal with that. Because again, even looking at other people's comments, it would hit me because I guess that sensitivity of there are people out there with that much hate in their hearts. Why do I want to get involved in an industry where that's attached to it? But then I thought, no, this is something that I feel passionate about. It's something which I want to do to help people. And that sounds real cliche. And sometimes I want to get the sick bucket out when I hear people say, I'm doing it to help people. But truly, that is the reason why we want to do it, because I saw the impact, whether it be on TV or not, what the impact these mediums were having on other people through the connection that they had to spirit. So yeah, it was truly thinking about, am I passionate about it? And I guess say that to yourself as well. Is it something you're passionate about? Rather than doing it for the sake of doing it, is that where your passion is? And when I first started learning, I was passionate. I thought I finally found something aside from gymnastics and my dancing, which I feel like I could be really good at, which I am passionate about. I would enjoy getting up to do that work. And I think that's something I would say to myself in my younger years. Where is your passion? If I'd have listened to that for my gymnastics years, I would have stayed with gymnastics. But I didn't. I let some bullies bully me out of that gymnastics place. So I guess it's think about why you want to do it and where is your passion? Does your passion truly lie for doing this work? Because it's bloody hard work, let me tell you. It's not again, it's not a bouquet full of roses. It's hard work. So yeah, make sure if you're going to do it, that you recognise that's where your passion lies.
And that's it. It is actually really hard work. The development that we put in, the time, the effort, the hours, people don't understand, and they think that they can do it in a weekend and they're a medium, and it doesn't work that way. It's just it can be a long journey.
Yeah.
So if we go into the long journey, what are your goals and inspirations for your work as a psychic medium for the next 5 to 10 years?
So I thought about this as well, and I wrote some things down in case I forgot it. Where do I see myself? So it's one of those questions, isn't it? Like you get in a job interview, where do you see yourself in 5 years? And I always think, I don't really know. I don't really think to next week, let alone 5 years. It's definitely continuing to work on the platform and expanding that more. And because for me, look, I can always get better evidence. So I'm never at a place where I go, oh, my evidence is great and that's it. No, I've always got stuff to work on. I want to get clearer dates and maybe have someone pass, whatever else it might be. So the continuation of that platform development is absolutely at the forefront of my mind. I like to start doing a bit more teaching as well, because I think if you talk about one thing leading into another, I think my background is, but previous jobs that I've done, I was a customer service trainer for a company that I work for, Booking.com. Other online hotel reservation services are available. But I worked for Booking.com for 12 years. And I was, at one point, I was one of their lead trainers. So I'd travel to other European offices and train their staff as well. And I was very successful, had very high pass rates in that role as well. So I've got that almost teaching, mentoring background anyway. But then also doing the artwork. Now I'm teaching the artwork. That also gets me in front of people that I don't know in pubs. Sometimes they're drunk. Teaching them a painting, an art piece. And if I can do that to drunk people, I can do I think in my head I could do anything to a crowd of people in the church. So I think that leads on to that as well. So yeah, I want to do a bit more teaching with the mediumship as well. I definitely want to expand my my reach to people as well. So I'd like to maybe go up north a little bit more, maybe across the pond, wherever across the pond takes me to do this work as well. So that's my head. I want to not be famous, because I don't think that's knowing how private I can be. I don't think that the whole fame thing would necessarily sit right. Not excluding it, I never say never, but just have more notoriety, I guess, in the field, in different places, not just, I mean, look, I've got followers in Canada, in Australia, in America, in Europe, as well as the UK, and that is fabulous. But I never consider myself to be an international medium, because I haven't worked in those territories. Anyone can sit behind a screen and read for someone in America, but it doesn't make you an international medium. I feel like you have to go to those places to call yourself that, in my opinion. Anyhow, that could turn to a rant, so I'll leave that one there. But yeah, just expanding my reach, I guess, doing the demonstrations, the platform work, go abroad a little bit, and do that. I'd also like to, and I was planning on doing this last year, but things didn't line up, is doing a little bit more psychic detective work as well. and really work on that psychic part of myself. I have done that kind of work in the past, but I look at it and go, that's not necessarily my niche skill in this whole thing. Whereas platform, I feel is more so, but I'd like to do some some work on that. But, so yeah, those are a few things to work on. Work on a second book. I also thought about working on some mini ebooks as well, with whether it be a topic on platform mediumship or something else, so people can purchase them on an ebook as well. So it's not just waiting for that one book to come out. There's little bits to process. But yeah, there's a few things.
Perfect. You've answered like three of my questions in one, which
Oh,
is
have I?
great. Yes. So I want to go to you talk about traveling overseas and working overseas. I've got Terry Nace, one of your
Oh
followers.
yes, yeah.
If you could live anywhere in the world, where would you live and why?
Oh, what a question. It would have to be somewhere hot because I don't do well with cold weather. I don't think I'm oh, I've just seen something behind me. I don't think I'm built for cold weather, to be perfectly honest. Um, I've got to say though, I do like being in Britain. I do like it here, but I don't like the weather. I guess it's because we are creatures of habit and we like our things that are familiar. I like my home. I like where I live. I like the car that I drive. Um, and all those kind of things. So that's the comfortability. But I think I would probably, if I was to live anywhere, it'd be some kind of Spanish island. I feel very comfortable in Gran Canaria, and we talked about before we press play, before we press record here earlier, that I do like Gran Canaria. I feel it just feels familiar to me. But probably because I've been there, God knows how many times, probably coming up to the 20 mark by this point, 20-year mark by this point, or 20 times. Um, so somewhere like that, I know it's not that glamorous or exotic, but I don't necessarily need it to be glamorous, if that makes sense. It just needs to be hot, relaxed, um, in a space where I feel I can truly be myself, be comfortable. And in Gran Canaria, I can, because the place myself and my other half go to is the gayest part of the island. So we feel we feel very comfortable there. We're not unapologetically ourselves. You know, we can hold hands, walk around the centre if we wanted to. Not that we do that anyway, necessarily, because I don't get my face smashed in. And it's terrible we have to say that still. I can't hold hands with my partner in case I get my face smashed in. We shouldn't be needing to saying that, but we still do, unfortunately. But yeah, somewhere like that, I suppose. I love Thailand. I think it's one of the nicest places I've ever been, and probably the best holiday I've ever been on. But in my head, it is just a holiday, because I think when you look at those kind of places, it makes you really feel grateful for what you have where you live, because they don't have a lot. And but when you do give them that tip in the restaurant or the taxi or whatever, they are so grateful just for that small tip. And I think a big part that's missing where we are. So those kind of things make you realise how lucky you are where you live, I think. But yeah,
Absolutely.
wherever I
Well,
again, wherever I go, it needs to be hot. That's it. That's
oh,
my
well,
aim.
sweetheart, you're welcome here with me in Australia in the top of Queensland because it is the tropics. And
No,
as you
I
can tell
will
by
get
my
there at some
tan,
point. My
you
other
are
half wants to
welcome
go
to
to
my
Australia as
house.
well, and I've got connections there. My cousin's there, my auntie's there with her children. So, at some point we'll try and get there.
Beautiful. And you are welcome here. And on that question, have you formed any close relationships with other psychic mediums?
No, I hate them all. No, I'm kidding. No.
They're
Um,
all bitches.
no. Obviously, there is yourself. And look, I've worked with a lot of psychic mediums, and they've been lovely, lovely people. But the only two really are yourself and Bill, my fairy godfather, our fairy godfather, Bill Hughes as
Yes.
well. Um, So I consider you not just colleagues, but friends, because difference is you can work with certain people and not see them for months. But with us three, we check in with each other. We
Yeah.
we are there for support for each other. Bill will call me in his car on his way to work. We'll have a half an hour conversation while he's driving. So he checks in, we check in, we talk, we share ideas, we share our thoughts if someone's pissed us off.
Yeah.
As they do in life, people piss you off. We're there for that sounding board as well. So that's the difference. It's a support system. Whereas other people, again, they're lovely. I've worked with them and they're fine, but there isn't that.
Camaraderie there is.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
that's
not that
true.
support system. It's not friends. It's like any job really. You go to work, there'll be some people at work who you might go out for with a drink and they become your buddies. But other people you work with, and whatever industry it is, they're just your colleagues. You wouldn't necessarily socialize with them. You get on with them. You've got that working relationship, and that's all lovely. But there's not always that next step, which is the bonding and becoming friends and support to each other.
Yeah.
So, I've got to mention lovely Bernadette as well, who both myself and Bill know from Bognor. She's always been a supporter of mine as well. So, to mention Bernadette there.
Oh, I do love you both, and I always say to my friends, I call you my brothers. So
Yeah,
it's the connection that we've formed, and as you say, we work with different people, different mediums. We can get on stage, we can get online, we can dem together, we can read together, but there is not that connection, that honest, raw connection where we can bare our soul to each other
yeah,
and there's no judgment. There is no, it's hard to find that in life, even friends, like I've always been told I've just turned 50. If you can count 10 close people on your hands as friends, you're doing well. You're
yeah,
doing well.
yeah.
So, and it's sad that within this community, and I'm sure with any community, hairdressing, any of that sort of stuff, that favourite term our fairy godfather has told us, the bigger the smile, the bigger the knife. And it's really sad that it comes to that people can't support each other and be happy for each other. There's no need to tear each other down. And what is that meaning spiritualism to you? What is that to you? People say I'm a spiritualist, but then can be so vindictive and so nasty towards other mediums, you question it.
Yeah.
So what is spiritualism to you, David? What is that meaning to you?
So I thought about this last night. I think I was trying to go sleep and it popped in my head. Um, I think spiritualism is one thing. I think that is the the religion. But even so, not all mediums agree with that either.
Mhm.
Because although spiritualism is a recognized religion, it's where mediumship comes from, it's linked to. There are some mediums who will say it's not religion, it's a way of life, which I guess is true as well. But it is that's the name you put on religion. But if you look at spirituality and what does spirituality mean, I've got to say, it's this is my opinion, and there will be other mediums maybe listening to this or not, but have a different opinion on it. I think when you take the word spirituality, I think straight away you get the same people jump on it and go, well, it means you're all love and light and you're perfect and you're saintly and you do all this good stuff for people and you're this, that. And for me, that's not what it is, because for me, that's just trying to fit into a spiritual box. So you fit into a certain community and then I put on a pedestal to look at being a highly spiritual person, when that's not what spirituality is to me. Spirituality to me is is living your life in a certain way, and which is knowing that there is something else on the other side. That's not necessarily spiritualism, because spiritual again is the religion and the philosophy behind it. But spirituality for me, I live my life knowing that I've got my loved ones upstairs on my side waiting for me. So therefore to me that is spiritual, because I am connected to spirit, I am thinking about spirit, and I know spirit are there. That's one aspect of it. But I also think being spiritual is, there is that thing of being compassionate and being kind. So I'm not dismissing that. I just don't like the whole love and light thing. Um, but it is being compassionate, and that's also being compassionate to yourself and not just everyone else. It's being authentic to yourself and just being a good, rounded person. And to me, that is spirituality, but it's doing it in a way in which you have an understanding of there is something else in this life. That is spirituality. Spirituality to me, it's not. Again, look, spirituality is not being a saint. I always say to people, if people ask me, I'm a medium, not a saint. So if I need to tell someone to fuck off, doesn't mean I'm not spiritual. It actually means I'm very spiritual because I'm looking after my energy. I'm telling someone to get out of my energy field. That is being spiritual to me. I'm looking after myself and my energy, because no one has any power over me to stop me. And this is the message to everybody. No one has any power over you to stop you doing what you need to be doing or being who you are. Do you not? If they are, you're allowing someone to take your power from you. So they're the ones that are not being spiritual, but by you protecting yourself, that is being spiritual. Excuse me. I'm just saying that because I'm a little bit tired of people go, oh, you can't swear and you can't eat meat and you can't do this and you've got to be this pious individual. Well, actually, these pious individuals spouting the seven principles of spiritualism are also the same ones spouting hate and discrimination and spreading rumors about other mediums in the movement. So, yeah. So for me, they're kind of hiding behind this love and light spiritual thing when actually, if they take the mask off, they're completely different. So, yeah. So to me, it's about being authentic, being yourself. No, and I want to say as well, excuse me, my throat's going a bit dry. This whole thing about being honest, yes, being spiritual is about also being honest and being authentic as well. But there's a difference between being honest and being an asshole. Yeah. And I think there's a lot of people say, "Oh, I'm just being honest." No, you're not. You're being an absolute arse. So, and people again will hide behind that thing. Be honest, but be kind while you're doing it. It's not being honest to be a complete wanker. It's being honest to help someone in some kind of way. And I'm really surprised when people say, well, how would you be nice? How would you be kind in life when everyone's hateful? I say, it's easy. Be kind and don't be a wanker. That's it. There's no
Easy.
there's no magical pill to have. Just that. Just be kind.
That's a great title for a book, David.
Could you imagine? It has to go on the top shelf somewhere.
Bestseller. Be bestseller.
Be kind, don't be a wanker. That's really it.
That's it. So do I put that down as your insights and wisdom for everyone?
Yeah, that's my tip. My tip of the day.
That's your tip, because that was my next question. What is your tip? So we'll just take it as that. So if we were going to round this off now with your last question.
Yeah.
How would you hope to be remembered, and what legacy do you wish to leave through your work?
I hope people would remember me for being authentic, just being myself, but being kind with it. As a person, also as a medium. But if I was to talk about my legacy of being a medium, I think it's being evidential. But again, being honest and being uplifting as well. So that's how I'd like to. I mean, but many people say that they enjoy my services because they are funny and because they are uplifting. And for me, that's the point. It's not about being on a platform and being sullen and sad, because I know and we know that that's not what spirit want.
It's not.
It's not what they want. They want us to have some upliftment. I know for some, for a lot of people, it's a serious thing because you're connecting with the loved ones, and I know that. But I also say, it's not that serious, because we know your loved ones are there. I know you want to hear from your loved ones, but they don't want us to be serious. They want us to be jovial. They want us to be uplifting. They want us to have a bit of a laugh, because that does lift the vibrations. And so, yeah, so to be remembered as being authentic, evidential, being myself, and I guess giving a bit of hope, I guess, to people that have lost their loved ones. And I guess that's what I would say, really.
That's wonderful. And I've thoroughly enjoyed 101 questions with David today.
I have as
And
well.
I
It's been
hope that,
it's been good.
and I'm sure that all the listeners will love listening to David being raw and authentic and opening up. And, you know, we'll see where this takes us. If people would like to maybe ask some more questions, I'm sure David would like to open up again. What do you
I,
think,
I,
David?
I'll be happy to. I'll be happy to. But we need those questions, guys. So if you are listening, we need your questions. It's getting involved, engaging in it. If you're interested, whatever the question might be, whether it be a personal question, whether it be something about mediumship, maybe you're on your own spiritual journey, ask those questions, because without those questions, there would be no interviews. So, without Glenda, because Glenda did come up with a lot of these questions for this interview as well. So do get involved if you're interested. Send those questions in.
Leanne, thank you very much, David, for having me again. And I look forward to working together
Yes. Well,
again
thank
and
you very much.
again, again.
Thank you very much for your questions, and thank you for suggesting this interview, because it was Glenda's idea. So yeah, I appreciate it. Thank you, Glenda.
No problem.
Well, there you have it. That is the interview finished. I do really hope that you enjoyed it, and if you'd like to hear more interviews like that with myself, then get your questions in. We can't really do it without your questions. So if you are interested in finding out a bit more, or want us to dig more into certain topics that we talked about there, then just email me at davidhmedium@outlook.com, or message me through social media, and we'll add them to the list and we'll get another interview done. But hopefully you enjoyed it and you found it interesting, and maybe you've even got to know me a little bit better by talking about some of the personal things that I did. But that's it. I shall love you and leave you, and I'll see you in another episode at some point soon, so keep your ears out for that. But until then, look after yourselves, and I'll see you all soon.